So before we get into the fancy for loop, it's worth a little non sequitur into arrays in Java. I mentioned before, basically everything's a primitive or an object. The one kind of in between exception there being an array. So an array in general is a list of things. So when I say, um, int array, I can actually put these, I use square brackets to define this array like in C. And by the way, if you're coming from Python's, arrays are much like lists. They're less functional than Python lists. Really a Python list is an array plus some other cool functionality, which is a Java list, which is an object, which we'll talk about definitely at some point very soon. But I do need to declare a reference to every array. Unlike C, pointers in Java are not pointing to anywhere in memory. A reference, a variable that is an array in Java only points to an array. It only points to an array of, in this case, integers. It can point to any size array of integers, but it can't point to an array of Boolean or an array of dates or an array of shorts. They have to be integers. So again, once I've defined that, at that point, I can then declare a size to go to that. I don't have to declare the size immediately. I can at any point later on say, okay, give me a new array of, in this case, size 3. So the size 3 comes in because of the value inside of here. So this square brackets is used in two different contexts. The first is telling me that I'm pointing a variable to an array, and then the second telling me the size of the array I want to set aside. So like this should be fairly common syntax across most languages, but I can also use the brackets to index into an array. I think Python uses, I'm sorry, I think MATLAB uses parentheses here, so there are many other languages that choose different things, but most of the core languages use the square brackets to reference into an array. So array element 0, Java always starts at element 0 is equal to 1. Array 1 is equal to 2, and array 2 is equal to 3. So it's always starting 0-based arrays in Java. So the next thing to point out there, coming back to loops then, is I can use a loop quite easily to navigate through an array if I want to do each one in turn. So I start at 0, and I say less than the array dot length. And so the array dot length, that value returns the declared value, 3, not the last element's value. So if I'm looping over an array, I always do less than, not less than or equal. If I do less than or equal, I'll end up with what's called an index out of bounds exception, because I'm asking for one beyond what I'm supposed to be able to get. So Java automatically checks that for you. I don't know, not every language does. C originally, you could loop right past an array and keep on going. So if you didn't track it, you could get yourself in trouble that way. So the important thing is the last element of the array in Java is always length minus 1. So the other aspect of arrays is arrays can also point to objects, not just primitives. So I can define an array of some class, a date, a string, customer, whatever I want out there. And that creates a list of pointers that starts off with the value null. So arrays always start off with what's called a representative 0 value. It could be an actual 0, it could be the character 0, it could be the 0.0, it could be null. And null meaning I'm not pointing to anybody yet. It's kind of like me handing you a address book that has nothing inside of it. You will fill it eventually, but right now it's a blank sheet waiting to go. And so when it comes time, I can fill it with objects by creating new objects, and we'll deal with that when we deal with objects more. I can create arrays directly though. So you can see up top, I can say, here's an array of 3 values, 1, 2, 3. Or I can create it on the fly by saying X is equal to a new array of 1, 2, 3. And so this is important of telling me what type these numbers are. So if I wanted to be a byte or a short, I would have to use the bottom syntax, where since those literals are by default integers. I can create an array of strings the same way, or array of some class by creating new some class. And again, I can always say, we'll learn more about the new call and the operators later, but I wanted to show you this in this context. The last little twist on arrays I want to talk about is the syntax that's probably more familiar to you Python users, where if I have a bounded list of things like an array, so I have 10 items inside of there, I can say, for example, the one we just saw, greetings here, hello, howdy, hiya. I can say for one greeting in all of the greetings, then this right here, this word greeting becomes a local variable inside of the loop, and I can go through each one of these in time. So I'm going to go through the collection one at a time and print out each greeting in turn from the array. So that's what you might be more used to from Python. It now exists in Java. It didn't at first, but now it does. Last couple little things. You can have multiple dimension arrays. So I can have an array that is 6 by 4. So in this case, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you have a row of A, B, C, D, E, and then the next row is, and so on and so forth. And so this is not uncommon in a lot of languages. The difference in Java being I can actually make those different lengths of arrays. I can define an array as being, okay, it's going to be 6 rows of an unknown number of characters. So remember, arrays are pointing to something else. So I can have an array of arrays essentially inside of there. So in this case, I have some matrix that points to ABC, D, E, F, G, H, I. So I can have 3, 5, 4, 2, and so on. They don't have to be equal length. They don't have to be truly a table inside of there in Java. They can be, but they don't have to be. And likewise, I can define those all at once. So I can create this structure by having an array of arrays. So again, anything within the curly braces as far as arrays go defines a literal for an array. And so this is an array A, B, C, D, E, and then this is a array of this array and this array and this array and this array. And so of these 6 arrays inside of here. So it's a complicated concept. It's something you just really need to practice to get a feel for. I'm just trying to tell you what's available, and then we can play with it from there. So one more type of loops to discuss. So we will tackle the while loop, the do while loop, and some of the extra add-ons next.